Hi, this is Miss Hadi from Olympian High School. I want to teach you about post-classical India, and we're focusing on religion today. In this video lecture and a previous video lecture, I taught you about the decline of Buddhism in the land of its birth, the rise of popular Hinduism, and now we're going to continue on with Islam becoming increasingly popular throughout the subcontinent. This corresponds roughly with page 422 in the Traditions and Encounters textbook by Dr. Bentley. And I'm going to be using slides that were created by the publisher, sometimes modified by myself. Okay, so in a previous video lecture, I taught you about 3 different ways that Islam came to India. Well, in those early ways that Islam came to India, either through merchants or conquerors, it wasn't always a way that endeared Islam to the people. For example, those Turkish conquerors often destroyed, temples and stupas, which, this is not going to endear them to anyone because this isn't something that makes people desire to be part of your religion. And also, it didn't really serve them. It didn't give them any benefit to convert to Islam because when the Turkish Muslim conquerors came into India, they often reserved positions of power in the government for Muslims of their own ethnic groups, and they didn't allow Indians to participate in the government. So that's the reason why initially it wasn't very popular. But eventually it is going to become a very popular religion. About 1/4 of the people in India are going to become Muslim by 1500. So that's a significant number. If you remember, I just told you that Buddhism declined. There's not going to be even that many Buddhists in India, but there's going to be people practicing this religion from West Asia, the Middle East, not even from India, and they're practicing. What are some causes or reasons why they might have converted? One reason was that India had a very strict social structure. We learned about the caste system from the section on caste in your book and also from Mr. Hammond's video lecture. But basically, you were part of these groups and they determined your occupation, who your social network was, who your support was. And it was very, very strict. And if you were in the lower caste, you weren't always treated very well. Because Islam believed that everyone was equal, they were hoping to escape some of the discrimination. And sometimes entire castes or subcastes called Jati would convert to Islam, but that didn't necessarily mean that their status improved. So they were hoping for social advancement. That's a cause, but the effect was not necessarily that it helped them. So they might convert en masse, but it didn't necessarily help them. Okay, so that's one reason that they converted. Another big reason why people converted was because of the popularity of the Sufis. The Sufis are non-traditional Muslims that focus on personal, emotional, and devotional approaches to Islam. So that means they are going to not necessarily emphasize the fine points of doctrine, what the Quran says specifically, exactly. They're not going to necessarily be super strict on in the way that more Orthodox or traditional Muslims might be. Now, there are 2 major sects in Islam, Sunni and Shia, and they can have disagreements between each other about how to practice. And then on top of it, people who are Sunni or Shia might be Sufi. And so they're going to be more devotional. They're going to emphasize piety and sincerity rather than emphasizing, what the book says, what the Quran says, and what exactly. So they're not as strict, basically. I want you to think of them as very, very flexible. They might even allow people in India to continue to believe in a deity that they previously believed in. That's not as a manifestation of God. So the Sufi missionaries would say, oh, it's okay for you to keep practicing and praying to, Vishnu or Shiva, because Shiva, it might be seen as a manifestation of God. That would not be okay. That would not be okay with a more traditional Orthodox Muslim. So the Sufis were very, very much beloved by the people, and that's why many people converted to Islam, but they weren't always necessarily beloved by traditional Muslims. Okay, so make sure you know that they were very effective missionaries. If you want to know why there's a change, it's a cause of change, think about the Sufis. The last thing I want you to know about is syncretism, when things mix together to make something new. And what we're going to see is an example of syncretism in the Bhakti movement. So we see an attempt for people to blend or mix together Hindu and Muslim beliefs. Basically, this starts in the South with the Bhakti movement. So this is a movement, it started in the South, spreads to the North, where they are going to mix beliefs from both. One of the most famous thinkers was Guru Kabir. Guru means teacher, someone who brings you from darkness into light. And he basically taught that Shiva and Vishnu, so 2 Hindu gods, and Allah, the name for God in Islam, are all manifestations of the same deity. This is a largely unsuccessful movement, but it's important because it shows us the cross-cultural interactions, and it shows us syncretism and the mixing of faith.